member, we'll just move forward with the meeting with the presentations from there.
Okay, how long do you want to give it, Martha, to see if Mr. Checkeye attends?
I think my feeling is we probably should just go ahead and move forward with the meeting at 3:03.
Okay.
So you don't have to do the motions that I sent you.
Right. Yeah, I figured
ago.
as much. It's kind of moot. So
correct.
It's your show, Martha. Tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Sure. I'll just say, just again, the reminder of our membership. We don't technically have any more reappointments until 2024 expirations. But there are 2 vacancies since Mr. Cooper and Mr. Doherty have stepped aside and are no longer interested in serving on the advisory board. So that's something to address before probably our next meeting. Some nominees needed for those positions.
Okay, well, the advisory board members present today, if you have any suggestions or recommendations about possible nominees to fill these 2 vacancies, shoot me an email. And I think we could advance a nomination outside of a meeting if necessary. We've done that in the past. But it's advantageous to be at full strength for reasons demonstrated this afternoon.
Okay. So as Mr. Fairfield said, if there are any nominees, please let him know. And if Mr. Fairfield, if there's one you'd like to put forward. Mr. Rock says, how about Mr. Dougherty Jr.? I think Kevin Dougherty's son.
Yes, and Kevin Doherty had mentioned that, so I think he would be pleased if that advanced. So I can certainly circulate that name if there's indication of support for that candidacy.
Is he with Crimson, I assume, as well?
Yeah, he's a Crimson Partners, right? I suspect he's going to kind of take over the operational role, COO role.
Okay, well, if you want to put that forward, just let me know. We can work with the clerk's office, of course.
All right, what I'll do, unless there's an objection, I'll reach out to Kevin and Michael, get a resume, circulate it to everybody, and if there's consensus that should be advanced, I'll forward it to the county.
Okay, thank you.
And then if there's any other people that you think would be interested in serving, pass the names along.
Thank you. So that's what I wanted to share in terms of the membership. With that, we just go on to our regular information presentations.
Yeah, tell us if we're actually going to get phase 2 Silverline service in 2022.
Okay, well, you can listen to my presentation. All right, let me get my presentation started first. This looks better. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. All right, so my name is Martha Cole with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, providing you the Dallas Corridor Metro Rail project update. Okay, just to quickly touch on phase 1, the Old Meadow Road realignment is complete. The Dallas Connector Road shoulder and some manhole structure repairs is what remains outstanding. That's work is expected to be completed this year, and the budget for phase 1 remains unchanged. So phase 2, we can say that it is 100% complete in terms of construction. The substantial completion was announced last fall. Package A, the station systems and track, was announced November 4th, and Package B, the rail yard, was announced December 1st. The current expenditures for the project to date are $2.551 billion, with a remaining contingency of $134 million. So, as I mentioned, a substantial completion has been achieved. That is that contractual milestone between the contractor and MWA, indicating that the scope of the project has been met. It then moved over to WMATA for their operational testing and simulated service. That's the stage that we are currently in. MWA and the contractor continue to work with WMATA on the punch list and the completion of the punch list items. There's no fixed duration for this period that we're currently in. It's really contingent upon WMATA's operational tests and simulated service. And once WMATA feels that the system's adequate in meeting their requirements, they will declare operational readiness. So that is a key milestone, and it's also key because it moves the project to WMATA control versus it being under MWA control currently. During that, once we move into that stage, it's actually the pre-revenue activities. That's approximately 90 days. During that time, WMATA does asset inventory, familiarization for first responders, and policy and procedure updates. And those 90 days would, approximately 90 days, would end with the start of revenue service. But ultimately, that revenue service date actually is set by the WMATA board. So this is just to give you an idea, more specifics in terms of the progress of the stage that we're currently in. So the numbers I have here are actually a little bit older, and I have updated numbers that were presented by WMATA this morning to their Safety and Operations Committee. So Package A, that's a track station systems again, that is, and under testing to be completed is actually 81% complete. And for Package B, the rail yard, it is 78% complete. For punch list completion for Package A, it's 73%, and Package B is 95%. So as you can see, there has been progress and forward movement on the testing as well as the punch list. A parallel process is also the safety and security certification. That's being done by an independent organization, the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission, to ensure that all safety requirements are met, and their okay is also needed to be able to open the system. So it's really important that that process is ongoing. As that testing has been moving forward, obviously as issues are identified that need to be addressed, they get added to the punch list. One item that was found was the heat tape deficiency. That was in about 15 of 300 sections, so relatively small amount, few areas compared to the whole. They have received a report and they're working to address that. They had the manufacturer out there. Another important aspect of this is that WMATA is actively doing hiring and training for phase 2 facilities, and they're meeting their targets for hiring as well. For example, in February, their target was 400 new employees, and they had 420. And so each month they've been working on meeting those targets. I want to shift gears just a little bit to tell you what else is needed as we start heading towards revenue operations, and particularly the Fairfax County activities. You all are aware that we have constructed 2 additional park and ride garages for phase 2 that Herndon Innovation. Both of those are ready to go. There's minor warranty work at Innovation, but it's ready for opening day. Other activities include a maintenance and operations agreement that's really just outlining the maintenance and ownership responsibilities between all the different stakeholders, VDOT, WMATA, and MWA, as well as the counties. It's similar to what we had with phase 1. We also are working with DPD, Department of Planning and Development, on getting the non-residential use permit for the MWA facilities. We're just awaiting the application from MWA. And we have completed the parking and revenue share agreement for the park and ride garages, and expect that that allows Smart Trip to be used to be able to pay for your entrance into the park and ride facility. And that equipment is actually expected to be installed within the next month or so. Over the last few years, Fairfax County staff has also inspected the facilities that are expected to be owned and maintained by Fairfax County, and working on punch list items that we have identified. We are about 96% complete with the punch list items that we have identified, and agree with CRC that they have been addressed. On a positive note, I'll say that there have been initial discussions with WMATA on activities associated with opening day of phase 2. So in that sense, looking ahead to opening. The other thing I'll say is that last year I did present to you all the status of the bus service plan. I think we shared that after the meeting, the information associated with those changes. It was an intensive process that involved the public. That bus service plan was approved by the board last month, and we are working, the Fairfax Connector team is working hard on the next steps that include driver training, and as well as a heavy outreach campaign to make sure people are aware of all the changes and the complement to the Silver Line service once it's open. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, Fred, you have any questions?
I do not, Jeff.
Okay, Michael? Can you hear us, Michael? Guess not. Rich?
No questions for me. Thanks.
No
Okay.
questions for Michael. I can hear you. I apologize, Jeff.
Okay, no problem. I just have a couple of questions. One is, what is heat tape?
So heat tape is what is applied to the third rail to ensure that there isn't icing that occurs under inclement weather that would prohibit, well, that would encumber the energization of the train car. So pretty much making sure that the track doesn't lose touch with the energy of the train. That would cause a stoppage or an accident, honestly. So the heat tape is important to ensure that the track stays at the temperature that doesn't allow icing that would prohibit the train from moving forward.
Okay. And are you aware whether there's been either agreement or progress towards an agreement on the amount of funding for the escrows, the maintenance escrows?
Yes, those discussions are ongoing. That's something that's actively being discussed between MWA and WMATA. We don't have at this time the final amount, but that is certainly they're in the middle of those discussions.
Okay. Well, I have to say, based on what I've heard, that's some of the better news I've heard recently, those percentages of completion of testing and punch list items. And if they can agree on the money, I would think it can't be too far off. Now, one final thing, Martha, can you use your good offices, or Tom use his good offices, to get WMATA to extend an invitation to the advisory board members to be part of the opening ceremonies?
Oh,
We've certainly been in for the long ride.
you certainly have. Well, we are, like I said, we have initiated those discussions, and we don't have any invite lists yet, but we'll certainly keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, are you going to give the report on the financial condition of the district, or is
Joe, I think Joe will take it from here.
Joe coming on? Okay, great.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll
Sure,
share my
Joe.
screen
Okay,
and talk through
yeah.
financials here.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Joe LaHate with the Budget Office for Fairfax County. You all should have received this in advance with Ms. Quello's package, but we'll go through the slides here to give the updates in terms of where we stand. So moving on to slide 2, we continue to make good growth land value wise in this district, just kind of giving a reflection on what was $6.5 billion back in 2011 to where we are at about 10.8 billion right now. Slight downtick last year, but we've come back up pretty strong this year, probably even beating some of the general median estimates within office values countywide. So, and as you can see, the tax rate corresponds to the directive within the petition. It grew incrementally, but it has since held at 20 cents, and it will ultimately remain at that until revenue service begins. So that's sort of the main catching point of all this. But again, just about $11 billion. And then obviously on slide 2, the spinoff, as the land values have increased, we've collected a pretty good amount of money to date as well, too, almost about 162 million collected as part of normal property tax bills twice a year, July and December. And for the last couple of years, we've gotten just about $20 million approximately in tax revenues on that 20-cent tax rate. So it puts us in pretty good standing. And that leads into part of our conversation in terms of what to do with this money that we have been accruing. Slide 4, as much as substantial completion has been achieved and the remaining pieces that Martha had cited are occurring between WMATA and MWA, the county has met its total phase 2 obligation to date. And we believe this chart is a pretty good indication of using a whole series of options available to us. I think most notably the TIFIA loan, which benefits directly this tax district, and that's represented by the second line item you see there, the $215.6 million. That will be ultimately the basis for our continued meetings in the future to ensure we have proper tax revenue generated to meet the debt service needs of that loan, which we have fully drawn, which we closed on years ago, 2014, but we'd not begin repaying it until FY24. So that was obviously one of the major advantages that the federal government offered with the provision of that loan. So it's been extremely beneficial to us. So suffice to say, the second and third line items there essentially show how we get to our $330 million obligation. But we also got some NVTA funds, some CMAQ funds, and there is a separate county fund that's paying back the remaining portion of the TIFIA loan. But again, all in, and not to be lost here, $527 million contributed, plus 2 parking garages for phase 2, separate from the phase 2 tax district, but all in. So on slide 5, again, just to this is a standard slide we show every year, but it really ties back to the fact that, of the total obligation for the district, $215.5 million of that is directly tied to the TIFIA loan. And the remaining $112.6 million we essentially used just in straight cash to pay invoices on a monthly basis as we received them from the Airports Authority. And the one advantage, again, of that TIFIA loan was that we closed it back in 2014, fixed interest rate 2.73. We don't begin paying it back until FY24. It does have a final maturity of 2046, but we believe we've got some flexibility in there right now. So just as sort of a high level perspective, if we had to pay it right now, which we don't, it'd be about $14.5 million. And as I cited previously, we're generating about $21 million in tax revenue right now. So that would actually on its own be a pretty good margin, almost about 1.5 times, which is a pretty good industry standard. And we also have 1 year of reserves funded, which is that second to the last bullet, equal to that same debt service amount of about $14.5 million. So like I said, nothing has changed there. It's just confirming the obvious, but a fixed rate loan locked in with the feds that begins being paid back in FY24. So FY23, we do have a plan, which will essentially use and reference that. So the question obviously is, what speaks to the long-term projections within this district, and what can we do and try to take advantage of some cash on hand and any excess cash. So we always use a series of different forecasting assumptions. In this case, we went with probably the most conservative of 1.5% growth in land values. And you can see here, what it really gives us is pretty good flexibility, and at the same time provides an ability to gradually bring down that tax rate as well too, as we move into the out years. We are recommending keeping it flat per the terms of the petition for FY23, but you can see beginning in 24 and beyond, we do begin a gradual recommendation of bringing that down. Again, assuming we can get at least 1.5% growth, which we have beaten historically. And while doing so, can we at least get a coverage margin of 1.25 times? And that below table, I think, clearly indicates we can pretty comfortably beat that almost every year. And we put a couple different comparative colors in there, somewhat in the Mardi Gras theme here. Obviously, continually prepaying with some excess money every year. We can wind down the tax district sooner, 2039 versus 46. If you didn't prepay, it simply just has that tax district running longer. And we ran that by comparison of the purple piece there too. So just wanted to give some illustration of, it's single purpose in terms of what we do with this tax district revenue, and it's paying off that TIFIA loan. And we feel provided some proper financial guidance and guardrails, the sooner we can pay it off, I think the better for everyone. So just some perspective there. Slide 7, a couple of years ago, Mr. Chairman, you had rightfully asked us to try to look ahead, maybe with a little bit of a nod to our phase 1 siblings. Are there some policies we could look at setting up to try to give some guidance in terms of when the rail service does begin, what could we potentially do with the tax district tax rate? So we actually drafted policies back in 20 and 21. We would actually recommend we have them ready to go quite soon. And the basic on that, I think, are 2 main pieces. We want to have coverage on an annual basis of tax district revenues divided by debt service of 1.25 times, or 125%. And we essentially want to keep 2 years of debt service, or MADs, to be held in reserve as a best practice. And that translates to roughly about $29 million. And then moving forward, provide certain pieces can be met. We've got the reserves, which we would like to keep. We can keep that coverage at 1.25 times. Anything that is in excess of that, we'd be allowed the benefit of potentially bringing that tax rate down no more than 2 cents per year, with our starting point being the 20-cent rate right now. So Obviously for FY23, we recommend maintaining flat, but FY24 and beyond, we believe there really could be some flexibility to bring that rate down, which is probably in some of your respects long overdue. But again, just trying to make sure we're properly set from a financial perspective to move into that. So on slide 8, I think that the key piece right now, I think we'd say is rail service has not begun yet. And per the terms of the petition for FY23, we can't change the rate. So we're going to have to keep it at 20 cents. And we've accrued quite a bit of cash to the tune of almost about $66 million to date. So what we'd like to do is take some excess beyond reserves that we need to keep, which translates to about $30 million. And that net piece really is about $36.5 million, which what we'd like to do is work with the federal government, TIFIA staff, and prepay the loan in advance. And I think you can see the direct result of that is ultimately a savings per year debt service of what initially is $14.5 million to $12.3 million. So before we even get to FY24, we've already reduced it by about $2.2 million. There are no prepayment penalties with the TIFIA loan with the feds. What we'd like to do is load an appropriation on the county side, begin conversation with the feds, and work towards a process of maybe targeting sometime this fall to take that $36.5 million and prepay. So again, putting that money to good use. We don't want to accumulate anything more above and beyond, since it is one purpose and one purpose only. Pay project costs, which we have, and then pay any remaining outstanding debt that the district has. So we believe this would be a very, very good position to move on. That kind of highlights the long and short of everything. Again, the staff recommendation is to hold at 20 cents per the petition, adopt the criteria that we cited with respect to a debt and financial management policy, prepay the TIFIA loan, and then essentially kind of running parallel, kill two birds, one process. We are going to look at potentially seeing what the options are to refinance a TIFIA loan. We are locked in at 2.73. If any of you, like some of us, have been following where rates have gone, coupled with things before, geopolitical factors in Europe, it's been an interesting process the last several months to kind of see where things have gone in a very roller coaster-like fashion. But we still want to look at that to see what we potentially could get under the current rates, and then alternates to potentially refinance. Any conversations that we'd give follow-up with you all to make sure you all aware. But I think the key piece is we're trying to go after the best possible way to lower the debt service even further than what we've got right now. And then as far as the next steps here, on March 29th, our district commission meeting will happen at the Fairfax Government Center in person. That's following a budget committee meeting. And then the recommendation from that commission will go to our larger board, and it'd be included as far as our formal markup recommendation into the county's FY23 budget process. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Uh-oh, I'm getting some feedback. Any questions from advisory board members? Michael, do you have any questions of Joe? Don't hear any. Fred, any questions, comments?
Yeah, can you briefly speak to, are all these loans fixed rates through the end date?
Yeah, Fred, they are. They're fixed through the end date we have as far as 2046, locked in at 2.73.
Right.
Suffice it to say, we've begun some internal checking due diligence to kind of see what we potentially could get in the open market. I think the key piece is that we've still got roughly about another year, fall 2023, actually a little longer, before we have to start paying it back. So any ability to refinance ahead of that would require us to pay something sooner as opposed to later. So we feel we've maxed out, almost 80–90% of the benefit of this loan provision as far as the proverbial, I don't want to say it's a grace period because interest has accreted in this time, but I think what we'll probably do is come back about this time next year with probably a better idea of to either stay or to go within the TIFIA loan and what the potential advantages, disadvantages are. If anything were to happen sooner, trust me, I'd say we'd find a way to communicate that with this commission, with this board sooner to keep you informed. Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Fred?
No, I do not.
Michael, I'll call on you one more time. We hear from you. Don't hear anything. Okay, Rich, questions, comments, input?
Yeah, Joe, just a question on the growth rate of 1.5%. That's on the existing stock of structures in the taxing district?
Exactly. Yes. You know, we've
Are there
always
any,
accepted. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, are there any assumptions as to new development being constructed in the TOD areas to additionally fund revenue to pay off the bonds?
You know, we don't normally go that high, to tell you the truth. We've just been fairly vanilla conservative, either 1.5% or 3%. Suffice it to say, if we got anything above and beyond that, like some of the pieces you referenced, we would just view that as a further ability to provide more tax rate flexibility in the out years and ultimately just pay this thing off sooner. So,
Okay.
like I said, we just get, and I think that's the beauty of this board is that we'll continually see the updates every year. And I think any feedback you all can give us from projects that your companies are working on, you know, I think we'll just further the cause of I think the ideal goal is to end this thing sooner than later. And I think we've got the ability to do that.
Okay, well, I
That-
think, go ahead,
Great.
I'm sorry. Anything else? I think this looks very, very good. I guess I'm following that even with that $36 million prepayment, you'd still have 2 years of reserve for debt service.
Correct.
And your coverage currently is what? You're projecting 1.74 for FY23?
Correct. Yeah.
So you're well
that's-
above the 1.25. So unless we have a radical erosion in the tax base, I think this is looking pretty good for early sunset.
Mhm. I think so. I think we've had good conversations leading up to this point that we're on the cusp of having some flexibility here. And I think we've stockaded cash, but we're putting it to use, keeping reserves aside, but at the same time having a set of financial policies, again, that you helped, I think, kind of lead the way, having a discussion on to make sure we're well prepared to move into 24 and beyond. And I think we're in a good spot.
Well, I don't know what input I had other than to ask the question, but okay. One final just logistical issue, procedural issue. Martha and Joe, am I expected to show up in person on March 29, or am I supposed to phone it in like I did last year? Can't hear you, Martha.
Sorry. We'll be in person. I think you're still able to provide a written report. So if you're not comfortable attending in person, we can also present that. However, I'll say, because we don't have an official meeting, we'll have to do something similar to what we did 2 years ago, I guess, when we didn't have a quorum, which was a letter indicating that there was no quorum, but no issue was raised, or the members present generally had no issue with what was presented by staff, or something to that effect, I think.
Well, we really have no discretion on the tax rate per the terms of the petition and the ordinance. So stay at 20%, but this really does underscore the importance of having a fully staffed or fully populated advisory board, because come next year, I assume staff will be looking for some kind of board recommendation as to the tax rate based on your recommendations. As far as the district commission meeting, I'm happy to come down. It's not a long ride, but I don't need to show up if nobody wants to see me. So it's up to you. Just give me a clue on that so we get a little closer.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. And I
All
can
right.
also pull out the letter from 2 years ago if you want to revise that accordingly.
Yeah, I'm sure I have that in my files,
Okay.
but yeah, but I'll track that. Well, okay, now mindful that this is an informal meeting, we can't adopt any policy positions or transact any business. I know Rich had wanted to raise some questions or concerns about some pending or proposed comprehensive plan amendments respecting Reston, the Reston Planning District. So I'm certainly happy to have that conversation. I don't know what, if anything, we can really do about it, but Rich, let me recognize you to offer your comments.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I just wanted to, let and I've been somewhat involved in the process on a task force to relook at the comprehensive plan for Reston with a number of other residents and business members. community members. And I just wanted to make the advisory board members aware of that this is going on. There are a number of recommendations, and it's a draft plan. It's being presented to the public. It just started being presented to the public in the last few weeks, and there'll be a number of other public conversations. And then it'll go to staff, I think, for about 3 months to review the draft plan and the recommendations. And I'm the only developer, property owner on the task force, but there are some things in the draft plan that we think, at least the business community thinks, potentially could impact development around the transportation, the TOD areas, specifically Reston, Wheelie, and Herndon, which could impact the amount of the future development. And Joe, that was kind of my question as to, what the assumptions were for existing stock and future buildings that are constructed in the TOD areas. So,
Gotcha.
Again, this was just to make people aware, and if they have questions or wanted to get involved in the conversations, I'd be happy to provide documents and meeting dates and dates of future conversations. But there's certain concepts in there, whether the stormwater requirements that would make development onerous, and there's an earned density concept where specifically to say Reston, the Reston Town Center TOD, where the density ranges are between a 2 and a 3 FAR. You could, if you do everything in the comp plan, you could get to the lower end of that range, and then you need to earn up to a 3 FAR. And again, in the current draft of the document, some of the items are onerous and potentially could limit, like I said, limit the amount of development around the TOD areas. And again, purpose of me raising this is just to make people aware of it in this forum, and make myself available and Mark Looney, my land use attorney, available if there's any questions or anybody wants to get involved. I'm not sure how it directly relates to the advisory board and taxes generated to pay off the bonds, but in the future, it could impact development around the TOD areas.
There is a provision on zoning and land use restrictions in the petition that created the district, and that was incorporated into the ordinance. But basically, it's kind of a hold harmless from 2009 entitlements. And there are some exceptions, some carve-out exceptions, one of which is stormwater regulations that are subsequently adopted. But I'm sure Mark has the text of the petition, but I'm happy to send it to you, Rich, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, if you could, that would be great. And then Mark and I can digest it and get back to you with any questions.
Okay. All right. Okay, any further comments or other discussion items? Okay, sorry we couldn't muster a quorum, but it's not the first time.
Right.
May not
we
be
have
the last.
we have a hand up.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Pam. Sorry, this is Pam Rittenhouse. Pam, do you have a question?
Hi. Yes, that's my question. We need to note locations of the board members, or do we not need to do that since we don't have a poll?
I don't think we'll need it this time, since that was part of the motions.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is really kind of tantamount to just a coffee klatch. Among friends.
You're right.
But that's
Thanks,
good.
Pam.
That's good news on the project, Martha. Appreciate you passing that along.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're getting there. So maybe our meeting
Yeah.
next year will have a different things to talk about than
A
where we
different
are.
atmosphere, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, advisory board members, for attending. Thank you, staff. And I'll wait for instructions on the district commission meeting. So
That's good.
I'm going to end the meeting, Martha. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.